Hey everybody, this is Townsend. I'm a singer, songwriter, musician, and mental health advocate. I started the You're Not Alone project and podcast to help educate, spread awareness, and simply help you feel a little less alone no matter what you're going through. Thanks so much for tuning in to Season 2 of You're Not Alone with Townsend, and I hope you enjoy. What is up, everybody? I'm so excited. So on this episode of You're Not Alone with Townsend, we've got a special guest with us. Ironically enough, small world, we found out that we are from the same area, and I actually heard about her through some friends of mine, looked up her story, and our families and friends go way back. So we have like the same crew, but I did not know that previous to this conversation. So I'm so honored and just excited to share your story. So basically, I've shared the story of the journey through cancer, and I've shared the story from a male's point of view of losing a spouse battling with cancer. And I decided I wanted to share a female's point of view. I feel like it's something that goes without much attention, and I feel like they need just as much attention as the patient does going through that journey. I can only imagine how tough it is. So anyway, I've invited Miss Lauren Moore to join us, and I'm so excited. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us and taking time to chat about your
Thanks
story.
for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll just hop right in. So who the heck is Lauren Moore? Give us like where you're located,
Okay.
your job title, a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I'm Lauren Moore now. I grew up in a small town, southeast Arkansas, Stuttgart. Um, and I am currently a nurse practitioner at Mid Delta Health Systems. They just opened a new clinic in Stuttgart. So I am getting to work back in my hometown and kind of give back to this community, which is exciting. Um, and went to Fayetteville for college at the U of A, then went to nursing school at UAMS. And I started dating my late husband probably around my junior year of college. And so after we got married and after I finished nursing school, I did live in Whitehall. And then I am remarried now, and that has brought me back to my hometown. So
Yeah. Old Stuttgart. So you get to treat all the farmers down there.
heck yeah, all
That's
the
it.
all the everybody's, I
That
mean,
is it.
it's funny, when you're in a small town and my mom has always said you can call the wrong number and still get the right one,
That's it,
you know?
literally, literally. Everybody knows everybody's business. When I think of Stuttgart, I automatically think rice and duck.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
it, girl. Like,
Yeah,
literally it.
that is
And
it.
then Max Prayer Wings, of course.
Absolutely, that's what my dad, farms, and then when he's not farming, we have a hunting service,
Love
so
it.
we are all those things.
Literally, you are truly Stuttgart. I love that so
Yeah,
much. I love
yeah,
it.
for sure.
It is crazy to me. So if you don't mind me asking, what's your age?
I am 32. I'll be
32.
33, in April, so
Okay. Oh my goodness, we have similar birthdays. Okay, so it is wild to me, and maybe this is just because we're getting old, Lauren,
mhm.
maybe not. I'm just gonna go with we're super young and fresh and hip,
Right, yeah.
but
Yes,
it is
always.
why yes, always fresh, girl. Doesn't matter what age we are. We will age like fine wine. So
Absolutely.
it's crazy to me to hear you say my late husband because when I
Yeah,
hear that, I think, oh, 70s, 80s, 90 years old. You
right.
don't think 30s, 20s.
No, and I was, 29 when he
Wow.
passed away, and so I never dreamed that I would, you know, be doing a cancer journey before 30, but also, burying a spouse before I'm 30.
Yeah. I cannot
Which
imagine.
it was tough. It was not easy, and that's what I sit back and I think now too, uh, being 29, and I think, what I should have been doing,
Yeah. Having fun,
instead of
living life,
yeah,
traveling the
exactly,
world.
instead of, having to worry about, a plot at the cemetery and what kind of plot I wanted, and if, you know, at that time, I didn't know what the future held, and so I remember after he passed away, I went out to the cemetery to pick a plot, and I was like my dad went with me since I don't know, I took my dad with me,
Sure, sure.
um, because he farms and, like, I thought maybe he would have an opinion about the ground. I don't know.
He said, "This
Uh,
grass looks good."
but, then I went out there with him, like, 2 days in a row and, like, would just walk around, and I'd be like, "Well, this is too close to the road, and this one, if I came out here, I feel like I'd have to walk too far, and this area looks like it holds water." And, and it was crazy the stuff I was thinking of, and then I was like, "Well, do I get a plot for myself?
That's a good
Do like,
question.
I was 29, and
Mhm.
it was one of those things where it's like, okay, when I get a headstone, do I get a double headstone? And because I remember in that moment, I couldn't think past that moment, but I also had to be realistic in me being 29 and being like the livelihood of me getting married again is higher because I'm so young. And I remember thinking like, I want the option.
I want to personally thank you for taking the time to listen to these conversations. It truly means so much. We've changed so many lives for the better, and we want to continue doing so throughout 2023. This project is made possible by sponsors and patrons. So if you'd like to help keep the You're Not Alone project going and hearing these amazing stories, we would love for you to join the family at patreon.com/TownsendTmusic. Just for signing up, you'll get free merch, discounts, and behind the scenes patron only footage. Not only of my music, but of each episode. That's right, so each guest on every episode answers a few more questions that only patrons will be able to watch and listen to. So head on over to patreon.com/TownsendTmusic and let's continue changing lives.
To be buried next to him, but I can't say that that's for sure where I'm gonna end up being buried. And so it was such like it was such a crazy thing, and I think it even kinda like it even took my parents aback, like, because I was asking them questions that they didn't have answers to either, that they had never experienced, and there were very few people around that I could even call on that had experienced a similar circumstance at all whatsoever.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Those are just like that. Those are instances I've not thought about myself, and I'm hoping I don't have to
Mhm.
think about for a while. And
Yeah.
so it's just wild to be 29, 28, 27 thinking about this journey. Let me ask you this from a personal standpoint.
Mhm.
So the reason that the You're Not Alone project got started was something similar, like the grieving situation. And I
Right.
just felt like my situation. I was so young when I had such a traumatic instance. None of my friends could relate. And
Right.
so I felt very isolated. And I don't mean that negatively towards friends or family. They just
Mhm.
didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to
Right.
relate. And so where I was grieving and had this huge loss, my other friends were just out doing their what other 20-year-olds
Mhm.
do. So it's
Yeah.
very weird. It was almost like a disassociation with everyone. Did you find yourself in that position?
So when which this is crazy. So when he was first diagnosed, I was 26, he was 33. Um, we had just been married for a year. It was just a couple months after our 1 year anniversary. And I
Wow.
remember that because I remember these weird symptoms starting around our 1 year anniversary.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I that's how I kind of like knew the timeline. I remember me just like feeling like him experiencing some symptoms and me just like feeling like something was not right, but he being like, "Oh, I, food's just getting hung. Like I just am having like reflux issues, stuff like
Mm.
that. Like blowing it off, blowing it off, blowing it off." And when he was diagnosed, the initial thing was good PET scan report. You don't have any spots anywhere else. Here's what treatment's going to look like. You're going to do, you know, 10 chemotherapies weekly, and you're going to do 25 radiation treatments. So every single day during the week. So 5 weeks of radiation. We're going to repeat a PET. You're going to have surgery and remove it, and
Got
this will be all in the rearview mirror.
wow.
Um, and that's not how it ended up being. But those first 10 weeks, I remember after he was diagnosed, my mom. Well, first of all, when he had the scope and they found the mass, I was there. It was just me and my husband that went, and I was sitting there in the waiting room, and my mom walks in, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And she was like, I just had a feeling that you didn't need to be here alone.
Wow,
And
women's
so
intuition.
yeah, she got up that morning and drove to Little Rock and came and sat with me in the waiting room, and I'm so thankful she did because I did not even, imagine the news that we were about to get. And I remember that day, we drove back to our house in Whitehall, and my mom followed me. And when we got there, I remember me and her going on a walk, and she, is such a faith-filled woman, and, she was just like, "I just have a feeling it's gonna be okay. Like, it's gonna be
Oh,
okay. We're just" me and her, with the stuff that we've done, we work so well together because she has these ideas that are, like,
yeah.
out here, and I'm the one that's like, "Okay, but how do we get to that?"
Yeah,
You know?
but
I'm the
reality.
realistic one, and I
I
remember us
love
going
it.
on a walk, and I looked at her and I said, "But what if it's not?"
Wow.
And she was just kinda, she didn't have an answer. When, she got home that day, she knew that if she could keep mine and Stringer's spirits lifted, if she could keep me going, I could keep him going.
Yeah.
And so she had done this previously, with some other people who had been sick, and so she sent a message out to a group of my friends and a group of her friends. And, what's another just kind of way I was brought up is my parents, I was one of the first kids out of their friend group, and so a lot of their really close friends would come over to our house on Sunday afternoons when I was a baby, and we'd eat pizza, so, like,
Yeah.
I have a group of these couples around my parents' age that are like another set of parents for me, and so she contacted a lot of them, contacted a lot of my really, really close friends, and, she assigned them a date, and so I would get something in the mail
Oh,
every so many days. And she said it can be a card, it can be, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be a written note. We would get, gift cards to go out to eat in Little Rock. We would get little pick-me-ups, little fun thing, just different all kinds of different stuff. And it was something that I tell people all the time, like, especially during the time of COVID, people struggling with a illness like cancer where you're immunocompromised. You are so isolated because of your immune system that a lot of times the only connection you have to the outside world is your mailbox. And
yeah.
so I would, I would get so excited to get the mail and like that kind of stuff. And so that is kind of what started our 501c3 Pass on Joy, where we have a list of cancer patients and we send them something in the mail once a month. So they get like a little happy because that is such a thing with, you know, chronic illnesses, you know, treatment has come so far. So you have these people living with cancer for such a long
Yeah.
amount.
Right.
And it can be very isolating because even though they might look normal and might be tolerating treatment and getting good scans, the treatment still sucks and they're still
Yeah.
tired and they're still immunocompromised and there are still things that come up that work that you're worried about. And so it can be really really isolating, and so that was really helpful for me. But as the journey continued, almost 4 years, it got to where the people you would pull from became fewer and fewer.
Sure.
And then Stringer would do really good, and then he'd have like a lull and be sick, and he'd do really good and have a lull. And so we would be, in and out of the hospital sometime, or he would be sick and I wouldn't want to leave him at home. And so we would be invited to things and I'd have to miss them and we wouldn't be able to go. And then you notice those invitations to things start getting less and less because people are like, well, I don't want to make them feel like they have to come. I don't want to add more stress. When really, like, I would prefer to be invited
Yeah.
and make the choice myself
Yeah.
than to feel not included. I know that I talked to you earlier about how my now husband, his wife passed, and that's something me and him talk about because now, we're in this age group where a lot of people, they have their friend groups because it's the people that have kids the same age.
Right.
And we talk about how with our spouses, we went through a time period where we were really isolated
Yeah.
and we couldn't like build these relationships with different people because we were so focused on caring for our spouse. And so, it does create this weird thing where it's like, during the time period of my life when I should have been going on couple trips and, having fun with other couples before they have kids and doing fun things on the weekend, I was at home caring for a spouse that was really
Wow.
sick. But I will say that I have a really close group of friends that we all went to high school together and we stayed really close. Kind of like I feel like you and Casey Joe,
Yeah.
and they stayed really loyal to me
Wow.
and would, I never had to, they were the ones that really stayed with me. And they were also the ones that, when he was in the hospital for so long, were coming and, the week that we knew that he was dying, they came to the hospital and they they spent the night in the consult room on blow up mattresses on,
Wow.
and they were kind of a hedge of protection for me. One of them asked me one day, I think it was the day he passed away. It's all such a blur, but um, I remember after he passed away and I went back out into the waiting room while they were doing some stuff or into the consult room. And one of my friends said, have you thought of what you're going to wear to the funeral?
Ooh. Wow.
And yeah, and I was like, no, I was like, I know I'll have, I'm sure I have something in my closet that I can get. And she was like, well, um, we went to Dillard's
Oh,
and we have a lot of selections. And then, it was January and I didn't have any closed toe like pumps or anything.
yeah.
And so they went to Dillard's and they bought me the same pair of pumps, closed toe pumps in tan, navy, and black.
Oh,
Like
I
any color
love it.
I needed.
Yeah.
And then like the next day, I remember trying on the dresses and being like, I think I need a different size. They drove to Little Rock, they switched the size, they changed the size. Like, I mean, and then I had, one of my other friends, she came down and washed my hair for me. And I
Wow.
mean, it was just like that group. And I will also say probably, the last year and a half of Stringer's life, we had started going to a counselor that we were put in contact with through Carti. At the time, Carti was doing a program. It was a grant they had, and
Yeah.
you could get 3 sessions with this counselor. And our oncologist recommended it because Stringer was really struggling at that point, being this big athlete and losing so much weight and not
Yeah.
being able to, do the things he used to do. And she recommended us going to this lady before we tried any different medications, that kind of thing. It ended up being like the best thing that we did. Um, we started going like routinely, and she brought up topics that we really hadn't wanted to discuss because we both felt uncomfortable discussing them, like
Sure.
death. And
Let me interrupt you before we go further.
yeah,
What exactly was Stringer's diagnosis for people that don't
um,
know?
yeah. So he had esophageal cancer.
Okay.
So adenocarcinoma of the esophageal, the GE junction.
Right.
Very rare for someone at 33 who
Right.
didn't drink, didn't smoke, took care of himself, to get. And
Yeah.
it's one that by the time you have symptoms, it's pretty advanced. So he didn't have any metastasis at the time of diagnosis, but the tumor had almost grown completely outside of the esophagus. Um,
Wow.
so so that's what kind of catapulted him into the stage 3
Wow.
diagnosis, at when it was found.
Yeah. So the esophagus, for people that don't know, in layman terms, esophagus basically is your throat.
It's the
So your
tube.
larynx,
It's
your
the tube.
pharynx.
Yeah. So it's the
Exactly.
tube. See, so it's the tube that runs from your throat down to your stomach.
Right.
And it where his cancer was right where the esophagus connects to the stomach.
Wow. Okay.
Um, so it was right there in that spot, which would explain why his symptoms were stuff getting hung,
Yeah.
not being
Like
able not
reflux type
yes,
things.
and then he would throw up and it would be like undigested food. It wouldn't be
Wow.
food that had been in his stomach because it couldn't get
Right.
there. And
Wow.
it just got worse and worse and worse. And there are people that have Barrett's esophagus, which can predispose you to esophageal cancer, but he didn't have that. He didn't have,
Wow.
they did all this genetic testing. It was, sometimes there's just
Life
I
a
say,
life ain't fair.
yeah, and I always say, I blame it on Adam and Eve and the apple and, the fall of man. It's just
Yeah. Oh, we laugh about it, but literally sometimes life just ain't fair. You know what it is? It is
no,
what it
it's
is,
not.
and I
I'm not. And that's the one thing. It's like I'm not gonna be the one to sit here and say, like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Like, I don't believe that my husband got cancer to die so someone else would be better. Like,
yeah.
I just can't, like, that just stings a little to me.
Sure. Yeah,
So, I think things happen and it's what we choose to do with it,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um,
What you do with that, you can either be down in the dumps and spend the
mhm,
rest of your life dwelling and grieving and
yeah,
wondering, "Why
and that's
me?"
it. Yeah, and it was one of those things where I was like, I he would be so mad at me
Yeah,
if I
right?
just, like, was here on just wallering, I
Yeah.
mean, he was the one that, like, was getting up, going to work, like, by God, I'm dragging this feeding tube to the basketball game, and
Oh,
I'm on the bench in pain, but by God, I was there,
I
you
love
know?
it.
It's
I
and I
love it.
know I know some people were like, "His wife is nuts. Why does she not drag him off this court?" And it was kinda one of those things where I was like, "This is what's keeping him alive, y'all."
Exactly. That's what he wants to do. Well, speaking of that, so you've been super open about your journey on social media, which
Mhm.
I have had people, they're the ones that told me to reach out to you. And they
Oh,
said
really?
how much they loved keeping up with
Yeah,
your journey and how open you were. Because the people that
yeah.
can't keep in
Mhm.
contact necessarily daily.
Right,
So
yeah.
what made you make the choice to be so open
Well,
and vulnerable?
so it started off with it just being an easy way to update and to get
Yeah,
information. And also it's like we needed all the prayers we could get,
that's it.
and if this is how I can do it, I can do it. But then it turned into what it did because when he was diagnosed, I was searching for somebody like me. I
Yeah,
wanted there to be somebody, I was on the internet searching for anything
yeah,
of the sort that someone had, gone through a similar circumstance. And esophageal cancer is not common.
yeah,
So there was hardly anybody out there, and anybody out there, the story was so grim. It was like they died, they suffered and died. And I was
yeah,
like, I can't do it. But then also it was, but then it kind of turned into people wanted, people were genuinely interested
yeah,
in how he was doing. And I think everybody loves to cheer for somebody like Stringer,
yeah,
somebody who,
absolutely.
didn't complain, didn't waller, kept doing what he was doing, and it was almost like I felt like there was need, and I felt like there was a need for someone to tell the real story.
Yeah,
Whereas, like, I think sometimes people are scared to sound negative or sound down. And don't get me wrong, like there are people that are pessimistic and everything's bad, everything's
yeah,
horrible, but there's a difference in being real,
yeah,
being realistic, and being negative. And I think what drew people to like our story and what I would write is because it was really realistic. Like
yeah,
I didn't sugarcoat a whole lot. And I, you know, that's what when we were putting a flyer out one time, someone like designed this flyer for a cancer patient, and it had cancer patient on it, and they sent it to my mom, and it had this like cancer patient like outside like throwing a frisbee,
yeah.
and my
You're like,
mom was
"Eh,
like,
nah."
this is not
Where's the
no
feeding tube? Where's
right,
the
like exactly,
IV bag?
like the real cancer patient is the one that's pooping their pants on the way
Yeah,
home from chemo,
right. The one laying in bed
like
feeling sick.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like that's the real cancer patient. The real
yeah,
cancer patient
mm,
is, the one, laying in bed, not being able to get up and pushing himself to get dressed, getting
yeah,
out of breath, getting their clothes on in the morning, like the cancer patient is the one who's hooking up his bag of food at night so he can get his nutrition while he's asleep. Like
yeah,
that is the real cancer patient is not the one out there throwing a freaking frisbee and
yeah,
swimming and doing all kinds of, I mean,
yeah,
no, absolutely not. Like, I mean, and that's the thing that, you need to show people the real thing, you
Absolutely.
know?
You were talking about how you got on, you were looking for support during this
Mhm.
time. What did you find support look like for spouses during this? So let me preface that with, again, I feel like I've gotten the story of the cancer journey, but the spouse with the cancer journey, like, you just kinda get
Yeah,
forgotten about is the best way
yeah.
to word it. You
Uh,
need just as much
no,
counseling.
absolutely. Well, it was more like, I think it's
Like, did you find that support group, I guess is the best way to word it.
not really,
Yeah,
uh, because I think as the spouse and as, like, the caregiver, you see like I said before, you see the real side of everything,
right.
the real side, and it's like, I might have a sore throat, but you had chemo yesterday,
Right.
and I don't feel like I ever and maybe I didn't find the support group because I didn't allow myself
Yeah,
because I felt like whatever he was going through was far worse
sure,
than anything that I was going through.
sure.
And but there would be days where we would get into an argument and it would be a valid argument. And at the end of the argument, I would leave feeling like the worst person in the world because I just got mad at my husband with terminal cancer
Yeah.
over something silly, but it was a valid argument,
Yeah. Life.
and so it gets yes, and so it gets to where it's really hard to take the time that you need for yourself because you don't feel like
Absolutely.
you deserve it. You feel like
Yeah.
they're doing something harder. And people are focused
I
on the
I
person
can
that's sick.
I can imagine. So a lot of times, you go through this and it lasts a few months and you can handle that. But you're talking about years. Some people
Yeah.
spend 10 years, 20 years, their lifetime.
Mhm.
And so putting your self-care on the back burner for years at a time starts to build up. So
Right,
what
well, and there was another part of it too was, I something that I, like, internalized a lot was I would and at this time, I worked in the ER at Children's,
Oh wow.
and so, like, I really, like, dove into that, like, oncology community because these oncology parents, just like me being, like, an oncology spouse, it's like you're very particular about how things are done because you're so aware of the risk of infection, and so it's like if I told them, like, "My husband's going through cancer treatments right now, you built this rapport." But then also in the ER, you get people misusing the ER,
Yeah.
and I remember, I'd get yelled at. I'd get because what they see is they see this, 27-year-old little girl who she's never gone through anything. She's not going through anything. She's not, and I still get that like now where like when I talk to some of my patients that don't know my story and they're struggling with something and I get it. I get it. And it's like people are so
You're like, no,
reluctant.
you don't.
Right, and I wanna be like, "No, like, I have a dead husband. Like, I get it."
No, like I picked a plot out and it was a
Yeah,
deal. You want to hear it?
I've done this. Yes, I know I'm only 32, but, like, I've done this.
Wild.
Which
Yeah.
is something that I feel like is it's changed my perspective on things.
It sounds like self-care kinda got put on the back burner, which is
Mhm.
understandable, and again, why we're having this conversation. What does self-care look like for you now?
You know, the best part is I talked about this group of friends, and
Yeah,
I've talked about my mom, and my sisters, and when you see someone that is, like, neglecting self-care,
yeah,
sometimes you can't, like, reach out and say, like, "What can I do? What do you need? How can we help you?" Um, because if you give them the option to do something, they're gonna say no. They
yeah,
can't leave, they can't do this, they can't do that. Well, for my 28th birthday, I think 27th to 28th, um, the week of my birthday, my mom texted my group of friends and said, "Hey," which she partially thought they would say, like, "Oh, no, it's too short notice, we can't do it." Texted my group of friends, said, "Hey, so do you wanna go to New York for Lauren's birthday?" And this is the type of group of friends I have. And, they all had jobs. One of them, I mean, they all had lives.
yeah.
They texted back, they were like, "Yeah, we've got, airline points, like, let's do it." Mom books all these plane tickets before we even have a place to stay. She hadn't even
Yeah.
booked a hotel yet.
She's like, "We're
And
going."
yeah, the day before we're supposed to leave, the day before we're leaving, I'm working on my nurse practitioner degree at that time, so I'm doing clinical here in town. And she shows up and she has this like poem, and it's basically telling me like you have no choice.
Yeah.
I've already talked to Stringer, like everybody knows, like pack your
Oh,
stuff, get on the plane. And so that is something that I think, just like friends of people that are going through
yeah,
something, just do it,
yeah. I
and
will I love that idea of the letters in the mail, love that. Now, let me tell you this, if my family showed up and was like, "Your bags are packed, we're going out of state," I would donkey stomp them in the nose. Like, that legit sounds like the worst thing ever. Anxiety and I don't get along, and that sounds
oh, no,
terrible.
my mom will tell you that, like, I'm a planner, and
Me
so
too.
when like,
I
I
gotta
was literally like, "We don't
no,
know where we're going?"
no,
Like
I gotta know, like, the time we get there, like, I need to
mhm.
know all the
Oh,
deets.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I totally get it because
yeah. But send me a
I'm
letter, girl. Love
yeah.
it. I'm just
Um,
messing. But,
but
oh, I love that. I
I
love
will
that
say
suggestion.
self-care now, and my mom will say that I'm and I know I am a completely different person than I was,
Oh, well,
but
yeah.
my mom will say that, because 'cause I'm very intense, very high strung, like, um, but now I just don't let things bother me as much.
Yeah.
Like, I just and so that's self-care in itself where it's like I'm less bothered by little things because I know I've been through
Yeah,
the
you've
big
seen the
things.
worst. Yeah.
But even though I've been through something, I'm not a pro it doesn't make me good at doing self-care, you know? I remember I called my mom one day and I was talking about how stressed out I was about, different things, and she was like, "But Lauren, your life right now is so much less stressful than when it was when Stringer was dying." And I was kinda like, "Yes, you're right, but that doesn't mean I can't ever be stressed out again."
Mother, listen,
You
I'm
know,
stressed.
and that's the thing, like, I can I'm way less likely to get bothered by little things, but, like,
Yeah.
I still get upset about little things because I'm
Right.
human.
Right.
Uh,
And you're
but yeah,
30 too.
yeah, I will say something that was really helpful, especially after he passed away, and it was really hard for me to be at my house by myself, was, getting outside and walking. So even now, that's something about being outside
Mhm.
and doing something that's like a mindless task, it is so good for me mentally. Just taking that brief period of time to just be with myself. And that's something that when I'm not making time for that, I can tell.
Yeah. I
It's
love
something
that.
that I was, working in Litter and driving back and forth to Stuttgart, which is essentially I was 2.5 hours in the car a day. And so I didn't have time. And that was one of the reasons that really made me leap for this other job was because I wasn't able to do, the things that I do to take care of myself.
Right.
Um, which is, stuff like that. And the Christmas after Stringer passed away, it was the first Christmas, I handmade almost every Christmas decoration in my house.
Wow. That
Like
also sounds awful.
I have decided I
Your
have decided
self-care and my self-care, girl.
I have decided that if you give me a glue gun, a hot glue gun, I am unstoppable.
Love it.
I, I could do anything with a hot glue gun. I've recently purchased a wireless one.
Girl, you are wild.
It's
It's kinda
like
like
it's
that and
charging.
duct tape.
Mhm. Yeah.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, and it's funny
Unstoppable.
because my husband now, he came with triplets. And it's so funny because when they break something, they now come up to me and they're like, "Can't you hot glue this?"
Yeah. I
Because
literally
they've
I'm
gotten so
literally
used to
not gonna
me.
lie. I thought you were gonna say my husband now came with a hot glue gun, and I thought, "Well, that worked perfect. Okay.
Right?
That was a weird
But
story."
it's one of those things where it's like, it's they've seen me hot glue so much
I love
that
it.
now it's like they break something and they're like, "Can you hot glue this?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "I'm not sure. We might melt it, but we'll give it a try. We'll
That's
give
it.
it a go."
I love it. Okay, what do you wish you knew now? Well, let me reword. What do you wish you knew then that you know now? Looking back at the 27 naive little Lauren.
Yeah, that I would I would end up being okay. Um, I think it's that I would be okay, that this is
Sure.
gonna be really tough, but you're gonna be okay.
I love
Um,
that.
but also, it's really hard because hindsight is 2020, you know?
Yeah.
I think knew any if I was able to tell myself something or if I knew anything, I wouldn't tell myself, or if I was able to tell myself, I wouldn't tell myself anything because who I was then is the reason why I approached Stringer's diagnosis
Yeah.
the way I did. I mean, I was maybe pit bull. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
The
it's
bull
one
and the China stuff. You're just
yes,
headstrong.
like it's like I was one of those people where like I was stopping at nothing to
Yeah.
get him the care that he deserved and the care that he needed. And when he fell short and I saw him kind of letting up, it was almost like I just tied him around my waist and I just like dug in deep and just like, you know, mustered up the energy that he didn't have.
Yeah.
And you know, cause I do. I think back and I'm like, we did all this treatment and we did all these procedures and we did all these crazy, you know, yes, we did all the modern medicine stuff,
Yeah.
but I also had him eat beetles at one point because that was supposed to help.
Hey, whatever. I
You know,
laugh, but I do the
I
same.
mean, his feeding tube had turned orange because I was pushing so much turmeric in it. Okay, so like, and I remember after he died, I was like, we did all that, but for the same outcome.
Yeah. I
And
love
it's
that
like
though.
so, if I knew the end result, if I knew something else, I maybe wouldn't have pushed him to do as much as he did, but that gave us the extra time.
Yeah.
That gave
Oh,
him
he
the extra
appreciated it, I'm sure.
time. Yeah, for sure. And that, going through all that and doing what we did, it's the person I am now.
Yeah. I
And I
love it.
wouldn't change that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're crazy busy, but I appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's vulnerable.
Yeah,
You
for sure.
handle it like a champ. Amazing. You've come
Hey,
so far, and I
it
appreciate you sharing it with us.
definitely have. It's been a crazy ride. And so, that's the other thing. I think another thing I tell young Lauren is to hang on.
Height. It's gonna get wild.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure
Yeah.
meeting you. We'll have to stay in touch. Now we
Yes,
know we have
absolutely.
like the same circle.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
I could talk about this stuff all day. We can
Let's
just
do it.
chat, you
Well,
know?
fun. We'd make good friends because I love to listen. So that would be
Right? Yeah,
awesome.
hey,
I hope you have a
I'll take it.
fantastic day,
Okay.
and we will see you later. Okay.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, if you're in the market to buy or sell, I have the perfect company for you. Clark & Co. Realty is located in the Benton, Bryant, Arkansas area, but they're able to serve you no matter where you're located in the state. They've streamlined the process of buying or selling a home to make it so much easier. They have a team of industry experts that make sure you have access from anything you can think of. I'm talking from local home inspectors to painters to gardeners and so much more, just to provide you with the best service possible. They're dedicated to providing the most up-to-date market data in the area. And I think the coolest part is if you go on their website, you can use their easy-to-use fast property search. You can even create a custom market report to see what's active, under contract, and sold in your neighborhood. Their team is made up of caring, knowledgeable professionals that work around the clock to help you with the process of buying and selling your home. So again, if you're in the market to buy or sell, Clark & Co. Realty is definitely the company for you. Tell them Townsend sent you. Let's be honest. I think we could all use somebody to talk to every now and then. Healing Path Counseling in Conway, Arkansas is 100% my go-to when it comes to therapy. Wendy Blackwood has more credentials than letters in the alphabet. She's won awards for her outstanding services and has a whole page of board memberships. Basically, she knows what she's doing. She works hard to help equip you with the tools needed to live your best life. She even offers a variety of services, including, but not limited to, cognitive behavioral therapy, technology-assisted counseling, relationship counseling, and EMDR. Trust me, I know therapy can be intimidating at first, but let me assure you, Wendy does her best to make you comfortable and find the best solutions and plans for you. Trust me, don't wait to make the call. Give Wendy Blackwood at Healing Path Counseling a call today. Get started on the best version of you.